Good evening and welcome everybody to Silicon Valley Clean Energy's Board of Directors meeting on Wednesday, January 11th. This is a hybrid meeting, and members are able to attend either remotely or in person, and public will be invited to comment at particular moments. Speakers are customarily limited to 3 minutes. With that introduction, let me go ahead and get started and do the call to order.
Thank you. I will begin our roll call with those attending in person. I will begin with you. Vice Chair Tyson.
Here.
Director Scozola. Director Mohan.
Here.
Rennie.
Here.
Makachek.
Present.
Walia.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
And joining us virtually, Director Hilton.
Here.
Meadows.
Here.
And I'm sorry, Abekoga is present.
Here,
in the
yes.
dais. Thank you. Chua.
Here.
Lee.
Present.
Thank you. Martinez Beltran is absent, but we do have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Let's go to the next item, which has to do with the public comment on items not listed on the agenda. The public may provide comments on any matter not listed on the agenda, provided it is within the subject matter within our jurisdiction. Again, customarily limited to 3 minutes. Let me ask if we have any public comment from people in the room. I do see one hand up. Let's have Mr. Rod Sinks, as I say, Director Emeritus and founding board direct member. Please.
Thank you, SVC Board. It's wonderful to see familiar faces and some new faces for me here. You know, this is actually the best gig in all of local government, in my view. You have a high-functioning staff delivering service to our residents really efficiently. The leadership through the years has been stunning. We've had 2 fabulous executive directors, and the staff is top-notch. So it's a privilege to serve on this board. And I would like to, since I am from Cupertino, recognize our new Cupertino representative, Sheila Mohan. I'm sure you'll get to know her if you haven't already met her. She has a background in finance, worked at the county for quite some time, municipal finance. So I hope she can bring that skill set to this board and this agency for your consideration. I've been spending the last couple years since I turned out in 2020 working heavily with the Cupertino Rotary Club. We've started a climate action program. Many other clubs in the area have done the same thing. We've been an alliance and taken advantage of SVCE rebates. And I'll tell you, the deal you have on heat pump water heaters is something that every home in our county ought to take advantage of. And I'd like to make an appeal to you to consider in your new program offerings, when you next unfold them, think about those nonprofits in your community. They too would benefit from some of these rebates, but most of the rebates now are only available to residential customers. Including them perhaps as a special category of commercial accounts could make a lot of sense and enable us to bring savings to, you know, those institutions, our food banks and others. We, for example, did a nonprofit center in Mountain View recently, and with rooftop solar, the heat pump water heater rebate was not available to them. And so we'd like to see perhaps some changes there. You might also consider batteries in conjunction with rooftop solar, a resiliency feature, right, for the grid, if it has real positive value. Even with NEM 3, I think we're going to have nonprofits on the uptake. Obviously, the battery is going to make a difference, and you might consider whether these things are worthy in terms of providing local resiliency, given those folks at PG&E that keep the lights on sometimes. So I just want to welcome you all, and I've served with many of you, and I honor your service. And George, I understand you're the only person who put their name in the hat for chair. So
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Rod.
okay. Oh, that's right. Some other might, but I would welcome your leadership of this fine institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod, for those comments, and also for your continued leadership in bending the carbon curve. And I do believe I see another speaker, and that would be Mr. Bruce Carney.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo what Rod said about the quality of the board, the quality of the staff, and the impact that SVCE has been able to make over its lifetime. I'm a Mountain View resident. I'm the chair of Carbon Free Mountain View. I'm a frequent attendee at these meetings, so for those of you who I haven't met, we'll probably see each other again soon. This has been a strange day, a strange week in the news. So I read today that Sunnyvale was determined to be the happiest town in the United States, and yet other towns nearby are underwater. Probably no one is happy in Planeta, California. Many in Gilroy are probably still wondering when their homes will be free of mud and debris. And of course, this is one of the many ways that the climate crisis reaches out and touches us at a local level. Over the Christmas vacation, I read a science fiction book by Kim Stanley Robinson called The Ministry for the Future. If anyone has read it, I think you might agree with me that this book does a better job than any other recent fiction book in laying out what the future might look like as the planet warms and in some places becomes so warm and so humid that it's uninhabitable. So I encourage you to grab a copy of that book from the library or your Kindle or wherever, and to share it with your friends and family and co-council members who may be wondering how we can afford to make the changes that we need to make over the coming decade. And the reason we need to be able to afford to do that is because what will happen a decade down the road if we don't make these changes is unimaginable suffering on a wide scale, number of climate refugees that make border crises that we have known up until now seem trivial by comparison. And so you are in the best position of any elected officials in our area to make the difference, to lead the communities that you live in and those nearby to a future that's more sustainable and will lead us all to vie with Sunnyvale for being the happiest cities in the United States.
Thank you, Bruce, for those comments, and thank you also for your leadership and, shall I say, sometimes being our conscience. I don't see any other public comments from people in the room. Do we have any online?
No hands raised, Chair.
All right, very good. In that case, we will move on to our next item, which is the consent calendar. And do we have any board members who wish to remove or any items from the consent? We do not see any in person. Do we have any hands? I guess I don't see any hands raised. Are there just the two? Yes. Okay. All right. All right. Well, in that case, do we have any comments or discussion from regarding consent?
I'll make the motion to move the consent calendar consisting of items 1A through 1J.
Very
I'll
good.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment regarding the consent items? I see none in the room. Do we have any online? We do not. So in that case, let's go with the roll call vote.
Thank you. Vice Chair Tyson,
Yes.
Director Scozola,
Yes.
Mohan,
Yes.
Rennie,
Aye.
Makachuk,
Aye.
Abekoga,
Aye.
Walia,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Hilton,
Aye.
Meadows,
Aye.
Chua,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries with Director Martinez Beltran absent.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next item, which is our regular calendar, and that'll be item 2 with the CEO report. CEO, Mr. Balachandran, please.
Right. Chair Tyson, members of the board, I have a few items to update you on. First, I want to recognize the fact that we have widespread outages around Northern California and in our service area, and even though we don't play a role per se in the T&D system, I just want to recognize the hard work of the line workers who are out there restoring power, and also all your emergency workers in your cities who are out cleaning up debris and getting service back. And of course, we have Santa Clara County EOC. Thank you, Supervisor Lee, and all the work that's being done at the county level for public health and safety. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure there'll be time for postmortems later about restoration and resiliency, etc. So that'll come later. Earlier in 2022, the board approved us entering into our second prepay transaction. Our CFO, Amrit Singh, and members of Monica's team also have been, and of course the admin finance team have been working on it. In the next week or so, we should be making the offering for $800 million for bonds, and we should be saving we expect to save about $4 million a year. Also wanted to recognize the high prices that have been hitting the gas system in California. It's a bit of an anomaly. It has to do with lower storage in the western United States, some gas pipeline transmission constraints that have essentially moved up natural gas prices by between 500 to 1,000% of what normal is. And given that in winter, customers will be using more natural gas for heating, that combined with higher prices in the January-February period, there will be some higher bills. So we are on alert for that. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I'm sure that that will be something that your constituents may bring to your attention. A piece of good news, as of January 1 of this year, one of the long-term renewable power contracts that the board approved back in May 2021, it's a wind project called TerraGen, 77 megawatts, serving 5% of our retail load and about 2.5% of our compliance needs for the current compliance period came online. So again, congrats to the board and our FOPRO team for bringing this online. We have a couple of additional items to update you on the current board roster, and I'm going to hand it over to Andrea to close out the CEO report.
Thank you, Girish. So as you can see, we have new board members on our board, so welcome to your first meeting. We have a bit of a snapshot to share with you on where we are in terms of having our entire board in place. So you'll see the light green is still waiting to be ratified or appointed. Fingers crossed, we have all of you that are currently serving as our representatives next year. So yes, I'm in close touch with your agencies and making sure that we have a smooth transition once we get some of our additional members appointed. You'll see we have a vacancy for Morgan Hill alternate in addition to Santa Clara County, so they will be new. Going along that vein there, because we have new board members, we would like to host orientation to kind of introduce you to the world of SVCE and electricity. So at the end of this month and beginning of next, we're hoping to have our first of what will be 3 workshops focused on what it is that we do in the energy landscape as a whole. So please look out for an email from me requesting your availability for those. Again, that's the end of January, early February, and I'll follow up with an email to get your availability for that.
That's the end of the CEO report. Thank you, Chair Tyson.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board members? I don't see any in person. Are there any online? I don't see any. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? I do not see any in person, and there are none online?
No.
Very good. Thank you very much for the CEO report. We'll now move on to the next item, item number 3, which is electing a chair and vice chair for the 2023 period, and we'll start off with a presentation by Andrea.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a presentation in terms of slides, but I do have a presentation with words. But at the end of last month, we did put out a call for a request for anyone interested in the role of chair or vice chair to please let us know by submitting a letter of interest. In your packets this evening, you'll see that we received one for chair from Director Tyson, and we received 2 letters interested in vice chair from Director Tina Walia and Director Brian Makachuk. And again, those are in your board packets. We did not receive any additional letters or indication of interest for those roles.
Great, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and proceed then. We have the first item has to do with the role of chair, and I would like to request, are there any others nominations from the floor? I do not see any here. I see a hand raised. Director Chua. You are muted. Director Chua, you are muted.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I was going to nominate the board member Tyson for the chair.
Will you please?
I'm happy to second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Public comment.
I don't. In that case, do we have any public comment? It was a gesture that is PG rated. If that's a good thing to have. All right. With that, we return it to. We have a motion and a second. So let's do a roll call vote.
Thank you. And I will start with Director Scozola.
Aye.
Mohan,
Aye.
Rennie,
Aye.
Makachek,
Aye.
Abe Koga,
Aye.
Walia,
Aye.
Tyson,
Yes.
Klein,
Aye.
Hilton,
Threw me off.
Aye.
Meadows,
Aye.
Chua,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. George Tyson, Chair of the 2023 SVCE Board of Directors.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your support, and I will aim to do more than not disappoint you. And it's just, I realize this isn't part of the agenda, but just we're at a moment of transition. I'm the first chair that is not a founding member of this organization. And so even though it's a transition, I would like to say it's still a point of continuity. Having spent some time here, I think that what we've got, as you've heard from earlier comments, is a really fantastic organization. I will not screw it up is one of my goals. I have loftier goals, I'm sure, as time goes by, but we're going to keep it going and we're going to make it even better. And that's the way I look at it. So thank you very much. You don't need a longer speech from me. Thank you again for your support. With that, I'm ready to move on to the vice chair. And we have already received requests from 2 people, and I would like to see if there are any other nominees from the floor. I do not see any in person, and we don't have any online.
No.
All right. And so what I'd like to do at this point, and I hope I'm not surprising you too much, is we have 2 candidates, and let's see, we'll do them in alphabetical order. Can you give us, say it, we all, by the way, thank you for your submission. We really appreciate having a strong interest, and it speaks to the strength of an organization that has that. It makes it a stronger to have that. And then we've also had a chance to read your submissions. And so if you can give us, let's say, up to 60 seconds or so, I run a tight ship, by the way, on what brought you here and your qualifications. And we'll start off with Director Makachuk.
Thank you. I'll be brief. My introduction to SVCE was back in 2018 when I was on the Customer Program Advisory Committee. And even though it looks like I've only been a new director now, I attended 13 meetings back in 2018. And then when I was elected to council in 2020, I was an alternate on SVCE, and I joined the Audit Committee and the Finance and Admin Committee. And since then, I think I attended 5 meetings in 2021 and 3 in 2022 for finance, and audit was another 6 meetings. And then in 2022, I was at 4 meetings as the alternate director. So it may look on paper like I haven't been here that long, but I actually have been around for quite a few years. And I would be honored to serve as vice chair.
Thank you. Let's move to Director Walia.
Thank you. It's been my honor to serve on Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board for 2 years. And this continues to be my favorite assignment. Everybody knows that. I'm deeply committed to the mission. I worked on Saratoga's Climate Action Plan in 2009. I've worked with most city folks, your sustainability groups, going all the way back. I've taught business strategy at the university, background in architecture and business. For me, as mayor of Saratoga last year, I have the experience of running very effective meetings. I'm adaptable, collaborative decision-making style, and I fully support the tremendous technical expertise of the staff here and support all the diverse 13 cities that are part of this group to serve the customers. And I'll be honored to work on this team as the vice chair.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you both of you. And then let me see if we have any comments or questions to the two candidates from the board members. I do not see any in person.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we do. All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just had a few comments. I just want to thank both of you for putting your names, your hat, what is it? The hat in the ring? As a former chair twice, what I appreciate about this board is the collegiality. And, my time will probably be short on this board as I get ready to term off, but we try to have continuity, and so I hope that for the newer members that you will be here a very long time. And so I think, it should work out that everybody who wants to be a chair or vice chair should be able to get that opportunity. So for this round, I guess what I try to look at is a reflection of our communities, and I am very interested in balance, and equity, diversity is of course really important to me. So in that regard, I very much appreciate again both of you, but I will be supporting board member Walia for the vice chair seat. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Do we have any other comments in the floor from the podium? And then I don't see any online.
No.
Okay, with that, I think I will request comments from the public. It never hurts to do that. I don't see any, and I don't hear any online.
Chua has her hand up now.
Oh, okay. Director Chua. And by the way, before you speak, let me just say, I'm proposing that instead of a typical, say, motion, and I think that has the potential to be just a little bit awkward, and so I'm going to say in a moment I will ask our board secretary to just ask for each person's vote. So if you're all right with that, that's the process. I don't know if I cut you short there, Director Chua, but let's go ahead and hear your comments now.
I just want to piggyback on board members Avikova said. I really appreciate the two of them putting their names on the hat, and it's really hard to choose between the two of them, but I will be supporting board member Tina Walia. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And then do we have any others online?
No, I do not see any.
And I do not see any. So I'm going to pass this then to our board secretary. Is that your title? I should.
Sure.
Okay.
After consent, yes.
We're going to roll with it. And why don't you do a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will do that. And in order to randomize, if you will, I will be doing this alphabetically by member agency.
Oh.
So I will begin with Campbell. Director Scozola, your vote, please.
Oh, no, I didn't want to be first. I guess I'm just going to go with the comments I've heard already, and it sounds like it would have been a win-win no matter who got the seat. But I'm going to go with Tina Walia.
Okay, thank you. Director Mohan.
Yeah, I'm going with Tina Walia as well. I was very impressed with both your statements as well as your resumes, and I think both of you would be excellent. My choice today is Tina Walia.
Thank you. Director Hilton.
Director Walia.
Thank you. Director Meadows.
Director Walia, and my appreciation to both for submitting their names for the roles.
Thank you. Chair Tyson.
Director Walia.
Thank you. Director Rennie.
Director Walia.
Thank you. Director Chua.
Director Walia.
Thank you. Director Mekachek.
I'm not sure if I should say present or not. But, I did throw my hat in the ring, so I will vote for myself.
All right. Thank you. Director Abe-Koga.
Director Walia.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Yes, I would like Director Check to do it again next year. For this year, I will wait tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a vote for Walia. Director Walia.
I'll vote for Tina Walia.
Thank you. And Director Klein.
Director Walia.
Thank you. It's 11 votes Walia, 1 Makachuk, 1 absence.
Very good, thank you. I think to formalize this, let's proceed with a motion.
May I make a motion?
Go ahead.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Director Walia as Vice Chair. Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? I do not see any. So let's proceed with the roll call vote.
Thank you. Chair Tyson.
Yes.
Director Scozola.
Aye.
Mohan.
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Makachuk.
Aye.
Abe-Koga.
Aye.
Walia.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Hilton.
Aye.
Meadows.
Aye.
Chua.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries with Director Martinez Beltran. Tina Walia as Vice Chair of 2023 SVCE Board of Directors.
Great, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. If I may be permitted, I'll be very short. I'm deeply honored and humbled. Really, thank you, each one of you. And this is a great team. As I said, my favorite assignment. And I am going to learn a lot from each one of you, including Director Makachuk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director, or Vice Chair, I should say. And thank you for contributing your name. And as Director Abe-Koga said, we're going to be rotating around. And continuity, I heard that's important. We're going to have continuity and change at the same time. With that, thank you, everybody. Let's move on to item number 4, which is appointing directors to the Executive Committee. And with that, I think we have a staff non-presentation.
Yes, thank you. Me again. Thank you all. Last month, we asked that those interested in becoming a member of our 2023 Executive Committee to please submit their interest to me. Again, this is a 5-member body whose tasks are to review and provide advice to the CEO and board on policy, operational, and organizational matters. So I heard from 5, coincidentally, and I can go ahead and show you who those people were. We heard from Director Martinez Beltran, Makachuk, Rennie, Tyson, and Walia that they would be interested in this body. Again, this is a 5-member group.
Great, thank you for that presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from the board? I do not see any. Do we have any online? I do not see a hand raised. No. Do we have public comment? I do not see any here in the room or online.
Correct.
And with that, I think I'm looking for a motion. And that would be for this slate of 5 names.
Yes, I make a motion of the slate of 5 names as our new executive committee.
I'd like to second the motion.
And we have a second. Very good. We've asked for comments already, so I think we're ready for that roll call vote.
Thank you. Chair Tyson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Walia.
Aye.
Director Scozola.
Aye.
Mohan.
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Makachuk.
Aye.
Abe-Koga.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Hilton.
Aye.
Meadows.
Aye.
Chua.
Aye.
Lee. Thank you, Director Lee. I believe that was an aye vote, and that motion carries for the 5 as presented.
Great, thank you, and thank you everybody who's stepped up. You're the only one I can reach. And we're going to have a great year. With that, I'm ready to move on to item number 5, and it's a clean energy procurement information update with a presentation from Chief Operating Officer and Director of Power Resources, Monica Padilla.
I feel like I need to sing a song or something to entertain you all. So tonight's presentation is just for information. It should be pretty short. I hope you find it informative, though. Next slide. So main topics I want to cover tonight are what are SVCE's clean energy goals and our progress towards meeting those goals, some challenges we see coming up in this current year, next year, maybe even future years, and then some future initiatives that we're following. Next slide. So SVCE's board, since it started back in 2017, set a pretty aggressive objective or mission, and that is to provide carbon-free, affordable, and reliable electricity, and to provide innovative programs for the SVC community. The part that I'm responsible for, and hopefully will inform you today, is the part that we talk about, which is the power supply section of our mission. And so the board also established a goal to be 100% clean. And so by 100% clean, that includes our renewable portfolio standard resources and non-renewable portfolio standard resources, and to be 100% clean on an annual basis. They also established a goal to be at least meet the state's RPS requirements or exceed them. And through the last integrated resource planning process that we went through, we also established a target of 65% by 2030. And when I say we, I mean us together, so the board and staff. And then most recently in the 2022-2023 strategic plan, Garish and the board identified a focus area to explore how we would get to 24/7 clean energy in the future. And so energy, for those of you who have been following what energy means, it's how much electricity we have to buy to meet every single hour or minute of our load or our customers' requirements. So that's what energy is. Next slide. And feel free to stop me at any point. It's certainly just, I use a lot of acronyms, so please help me. So, of course, we want to serve the board's directives. But as a load-serving entity, or an LSC in California, we are subject to many laws and rules that are established by the California Public Utility Commission, or the CPUC. Included in those are several bills. SB 100 establishes essentially an RPS requirement. Starting in 2020, we have to be 35.8% RPS. That is that 35.8% of all the energy that we procure on behalf of our load, our customers, has to come from what is qualified as renewable energy. So that includes things like wind, solar, geothermal, small hydro, biomass. Those are all RPS resources. In addition to that, it sets a goal to be 100% carbon-free by 2045. And by carbon-free, again, they mean RPS resources and non-RPS resources. So things like large hydro and nuclear, those are resources that don't emit emissions. SB 350 requires that 65% of the RPS per compliance period, and we're currently in what we call compliance period 4, it started in 2020, 65% has to be met via long-term power purchase agreements, or PPAs. And so the long-term being 10 years or greater. And then a recent bill that passed this year, SB 1020, it sets interim targets on how much clean or carbon-free energy we have to have in 2035 and 2040 to get to that 2045 100% carbon neutral, carbon-free goal. And then, as I mentioned, we are a load-serving entity governed by, to some extent, by the California Public Utility Commission. They can establish what they call procurement orders. And they do that through a process called integrated resource planning. And I think some of you who remember, we just recently adopted a new IRP. Next slide. So this graph here shows our progress towards meeting our renewable portfolio standard. So before 2022, so when we started back in 2017, we essentially were able to hit a 50% RPS. And we did that for the most part, almost exclusively, through what we called short-term renewable products, things that we bought in the market, existing resources that we bought from utilities such as PG&E, SoCal Edison, or marketers that had surplus renewable resources to sell in the market. So these were resources that already existed. Of course, our founding board wanted us to also try to build actual resources. We have the requirement to have long-term PPAs, but those don't require that they be from new resources. They just require that they be long-term contracts. But our board had in its objectives and its strategic plan that we wanted to add new resources to the grid. And so we have done that. And in 2022, we brought on our first set of new long-term PPAs into our portfolio. So in 2022, you can see that the short-term resources, the one in the kind of bright green color at the top of the stack there, that is essentially, it still makes up a good fraction of our requirements for 2022, but in years past, it was all green. Now we have actual resources that we can say are our resources, and they'll be with us for the next 10 to 20 years. Next slide. Oh, one other thing to note here is we're way on target in meeting not just your directives under the IRP and strategic plan, but also our requirements under state law. Next slide. So you've probably seen this map in the CEO report, but just to highlight, these are the different PPAs that we have scattered throughout the state and some out of state as well. Our goal when we sign contracts or when we look for resources is to try to diversify across not just technology, so we don't want all solar or all solar plus storage, but we want to get a good mix of solar, wind, geothermal, and we want them in different locations throughout the state because each of these resources have a cost associated with them. You know, we have a fixed price that we pay, but they also produce value. They generate electricity that we're able to sell into the market, the California Independent System Operator market, and we get money for those. So diversifying those geographically helps us in our risk management objectives as well. Next slide. This here is just a list of all those projects. The capacity, the nameplate capacity that we have procured, what percent of our load we expected to meet in 2025, and the term of the contracts, when the board approved them, and the authority they gave us, and then the current status. So you can see the ones in green are the ones that are our resources online and counting in our portfolio. Next slide. So again, in 2022, we were excited to bring on, I believe, 5 new PPAs. So we onboarded those, meaning we brought them into the market, connected them if they were brand new into the Cal ISO, flipped the switch and started to receive electricity from them. Some of us got to go to some ribbon cuttings and cut some ribbons and see the projects firsthand. So here just is the list of the resources that came online. It wasn't until October that we got the last resource on, but you can see here how these resources have been generating electricity month to month. By 2025, we expect this to be about 60% of our annual needs. Currently, it's only about 23%. Next slide. And then that requirement that we have 65% of our RPS and long-term contracts per compliance year, you can see here that we do expect to meet our long-term requirements in compliance period 4, where the requirement is 26%. With the resources that we've committed to, we're at 29%, so we have a little bit of a margin there, partly because we were able to take the PG&E voluntary allocation market offer or VAMO product. But in the next compliance periods, we have quite a bit of margin in terms of what we have acquired so far. Next slide. So two driving objectives in meeting our clean power supply energy needs. One is RPS, and the other is the SVCE board objective to be 100% clean on an annual basis. So most of the clean is met again through RPS resources, and we balance those against non-RPS resources. We started to receive the PG&E allocation for large hydro and nuclear a couple of years ago, and we expect to get it in 2023 as well. And that makes up a large fraction of our RPS needs. We get those allocations for free, right? Because we pay for them through the power cost of difference adjuster. And so those resources, however, are going to go away. The Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant that we get the allocations from right now, through legislation that was passed this year, will be extended, and the resource will go to the state. It will no longer be a resource that PG&E is able to allocate to us. In addition to that, there's a proceeding underway at the CPUC to take the carbon-free resources, so the large hydro and the nuclear, if it's in PG&E's portfolio, which I don't think it will be anymore, and no longer provide that as an allocation, but rather adjust the PCIA to include the value of the carbon-free attribute. So those resources are likely not going to be available to us beyond 2024 or 2025. And so we have to go out and source those resources in the market. And those resources are really hard to come by. There's no other nuclear that you can buy, right? That's the only remaining, unfortunately, that's the only remaining one in California. So we're really dependent on availability of large hydro either in California or the Northwest. And in California, we were fortunate enough to sign a long-term contract with the federal government for a very small share of their project called the Central Valley Project, and that'll come on in 2025, but it's a very small amount. Other resources that we could go to are most likely going to come from the Northwest, where they've traditionally come for before we got the allocations. But the problem there is that the neighboring states, Washington and Oregon, are also developing their own clean standards. And so we believe that the availability of those resources will essentially dry up. So this is going to become a challenge for us to see how we can meet the annual goal that the board has set for us in an affordable way. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to is what is it going to cost to meet that goal? Next slide. So by law, we have to produce what's called a power source disclosure, or a PCL is the other way. It's kind of like a label, like a nutritional label for energy. And every load-serving entity has to produce this for every product that they serve or they provide. The PCL has some interesting math associated with it. So for our estimated 2022 power PCL, we're estimating right now a 46.8% RPS, when in reality, we've actually bought for Green Star, which is our primary product, 50% RPS. But because of the way the accounting works, because we over-procure for carbon-free, we have to back out some of our RPS on the power content label. The COSO geothermal project, the one that we brought on in January, because of the way that the California Air Resources Board treats that resource, and it's located in a geographic area that is unique, is requiring that we report emissions associated with it. And so we will be showing some emissions, and you can see there it's 76 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour associated with COSO. This is, again, an accounting situation. Geothermal, all types of geothermal, whether it's this type or wherever it's located, or the different technologies, according to the CPUC, is a clean resource. It meets the RPS requirements. It's needed, very much needed, to meet our state's clean goals by 2045. So while we're not excited to show emissions, we are excited to have this resource in our portfolio. And then the other product that we offer is Green Prime. That's a voluntary product. It's 100% RPS, and we will be meeting the 100% RPS this year. So overall, our RPS for 2022 is estimated at 53.8%, or about 54%. Next slide. So in addition to energy, all of what I talked about before was energy. We also have requirements to buy capacity. And capacity is essentially the resource capability, a project's capability of producing electricity at a given point in time, the maximum capacity. So resource adequacy and reliability is really kind of a coordinated function between the California Energy Commission, the California Public Utility Commission, and the California Independent System Operator. And we've seen some real big challenges, and certainly challenges in reliability over the last couple of years, unprecedented heat waves, changes in load, retirements of resources, clean goals that are bringing on a whole bunch of clean resources, but that don't produce the same way that a natural gas resource does. And then just the bigger challenge, or another challenge, is just the number of LSCs that are now in California, so CCAs. We didn't exist in this amount a few years ago. So all of this is leading to what's called resource adequacy reform. And these procurement orders that I talked about before that the CPUC was able to make through its integrated resource planning process. So next slide. So the CPUC has issued 3 procurement orders since 2019. The first one was everybody had to bring capacity on. In total, they were looking for 3,300 megawatts of capacity to be online by 2021 through 2023. We were allocated a share, and we met that obligation. In 2021, they issued another summer reliability procurement order, but they allocated it to the IOU. So they said, we don't have enough time, you guys do this, and then we'll allocate all the costs to all the ratepayers. And so they were able to, I think, effectively procure that. I'll have to check on that. And then most recently, in June 2021, they issued what they called the midterm reliability procurement order. In total, they asked for 11,500 megawatts of new capacity to come online by 2026. And our share of that was 237 megawatts. Next slide. So we were able to count some of our resources and make some significant progress towards meeting this requirement of 237 megawatts. But we still have some procurement to do, and most notably in the 2024-2025 tranches. Through the California Community Joint Powers Authority, which we are a member of, we were able to secure all of what we call the long lead time resources, which were for long duration storage and for firm clean resources, AKA geothermal. So we've met that requirement, and we're actively procuring to meet the remaining open position that we have. Next slide. So in summary, the procurement orders, the drought, the scarcity of reliability resources for capacity, these are all driving costs up for SVCE, for all the load-serving entities, for the state of California. And these are driven primarily because of just the cost of bringing new resources online is just becoming more and more expensive due to supply chain issues, labor issues, procurement orders. Believe it or not, procurement orders have the effect of driving up prices. And so all of these are going to drive up our cost of meeting clean energy goals in the future and our ability to meet these clean energy requirements, whether they're board directives or state directives, in a timely manner. And then again, the ability to get these non-RPS or carbon-free hydroelectric resources is going to become more and more challenging in the future, especially as everybody now has this requirement to be 100% clean by 2045, and some very aggressive interim targets by 2030 and 2035. So we'll be competing with many other buyers for those clean resources, whereas before, we were kind of a little bit out there on our own. Resource adequacy reform will make compliance a much greater challenge and increase costs. We're gonna go from having to report and procure to meet very limited targets, to having to do it on a 24-hour basis. So this is going to cause a lot of craziness in the market, is all I can say, is what we anticipate. It's going to be very challenging to meet these requirements. In order for us to meet these requirements, we being SVCE and the state, we're going to have to continue to rely on natural gas resources for reliability. It's just a given fact. Whether we own them or somebody else owns them, they will stay online because they're necessary to balance the intermittent resources that renewable resources are. And so, up until now, and even in the future, we meet our resource adequacy, that is SVCE meets it primarily through natural gas capacity resources. We just buy them year to year, and we pay the price that we see year to year to meet our RA obligations. And while we have this strategic focus area to look at carbon-free 24/7, and we certainly have set ourselves up in the types of resources that we procured by using geothermal and wind and solar with a lot of storage, the ability to actually get to 24/7 or somewhere close to that will be a challenge until this reliability issue, because the lights have to stay on, and it has to be affordable. Because if it's not affordable, then I think customers will start to leave the state, and then we have a bigger affordability problem. So these are some of the challenges that we see in not just meeting our objectives in the near term, but long term as well. Next slide. So what are we going to focus on in addition to all the other stuff that we're working on? Is we'll continue to optimize our PPA resources in the market. We've been relatively successful in how we're managing these resources and bringing value to our customers through these PPA resources. We'll continue to procure clean resources to meet our obligations and SVCE goals. We issued an RFO, or request for offers, in the fall of 2022, and we're currently evaluating those offers, and hopefully we'll be able to bring one or two to the board for consideration in the next 2 or 3 months. We'll continue to explore additional long-term hydro resources. So this, again, is something that we want to be out there ahead of the game, securing these resources so that we don't have to we don't have the uncertainty of whether we're going to make our goals year to year. We will, and we are evaluating the use of long-term natural gas and/or standalone storage resources to meet our resource adequacy and reliability requirements. This is a compliance requirement, and it's something that we, even as a clean energy supplier, have an obligation to help the state and the grid be reliable. We'll monitor developments in new clean energy technologies, including hydrogen. You know, this is the new kind of everybody's talking about it type thing. It still remains to be somewhat cost ineffective or expensive, I should say, but we'll continue to monitor it. And then, of course, we will look, because it's a strategic plan focus area and because we believe it's the right thing to do, we will assess the feasibility cost and what strategies we have to utilize to achieve carbon-free 24/7. So that's all I have. Happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you. That's quite a presentation. Gives us a lot to think about. Let's see if we have any, we'll say, comments or questions from board members. Director Rennie?
I was going to wait, but I didn't see any other questions. If you could go back to slide 8. This just dawned on me. I know I've seen this slide before a few times. So it just dawned on me, when I look at this, you see a seasonal shape to the production for solar, and I'm even surprised to see the Mountain View wind also has a seasonal shape to it. And it seems to me this is fortuitous because our load is higher in the summer when there's a lot more electricity used for air conditioning. But what's going to happen when we push heating to be electric? All of a sudden, the renewables don't match the seasonal shape. Right now we have a daily shape problem, which we can get away with battery storage or something like that. What are we going to do further out in, probably starting, we're talking about out in the, buying for out in the future, 2040 kind of thing. By 2040, our load shape may not look like this so much anymore. And now we're stuck with, what are we going to buy in January? We're going to have to buy extra solar, but that's going to produce extra in the summer, and what's going to be done with it? So it seems to me that we've got a problem in here we need to somehow think about. And as we're buying long-term contracts, maybe we should be thinking, what is the solution to that? Is there wind resources? Is there some renewable resource that we can be thinking about to hit the wintertime months out in the future when our load shape changes?
Yeah, I think short of something like geothermal that produces year-round, I think we're really kind of looking at a lot of storage to help meet our day-to-day requirements and hour-to-hour requirements. Week to week or month to month, it's a bigger problem. And so it's just going to be, we're just gonna have to build more capacity than what we need, quite frankly, in order to get to meet those requirements in those winter months. Looking at wind out of state is also something that produces a bit of a more complementary generation profile to solar in state and even to wind in state. So that's another potential resource. Offshore wind also produces kind of a nice complementary generation profile. That's a little bit more of a challenge. I think that's, obviously building offshore wind is in California because it's such a deep kind of ocean thing that it creates a new set of challenges, and then you have to be able to bring it online and everything, but those are other things that the state is looking at as ways to meet that particular, it's not just our problem, by the way, it's everybody's. And of course, hydro helps in the winter months as well. And so if, you know, hydro definitely is a good balancing resource. It has a lot of storage capacity associated with it. It tends to generate more in the spring and the summers because that's when the value is, but you can also generate it in any time of the year. So
It's good that it's got that inverse shape to it.
Yeah.
I'm worried that in the future we might be saving our gas peaker plants to run in the wintertime because our power shape, it doesn't match our load shape so well anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we could be thinking about or purchasing something long-term that may do more in the winter months. Thanks.
yeah, these long lead time resources that the CPUC identified, the long duration storage and the firm clean resources, or, you know, geothermal and biomass, I think is what they're hoping part of the solution is going to be to meet that problem of not having enough clean resources in the winter months and in certain times of the day. But it's a lot of capacity that you have to bring on in order to meet the problem, because you can bring on 1,000 megawatts, but 1,000 megawatts doesn't always count. So.
Director Makachuk.
I believe you mentioned there was a 10-year number in there for the length of time a power purchase agreement has to be in place?
Yeah, that's under SB 350, minimum 10 years.
Right. Is if you enter into a 12-year contract and then you're in 9 years to go, does that number drop, or is it from when you originally entered into the contract?
It's from your original date of exit.
Understood.
Yeah, it's 10 years in total, minimum.
Okay. And then it seems like on the one slide that you had with the various numbers on it, and I can't remember which one it was, but maybe it was number 7, you mentioned hydrogen. And we have to be looking to the future, to new technologies and new opportunities. But to what extent can we help move new technologies forward, or is that outside of sort of our mission?
Well, I think that the state and the country as a whole are looking at research and development in hydrogen and investing quite a bit of dollars in the, I guess, development and trying different hydrogen type technologies. SVCE, I don't believe we have anything in our strategic. I'll let Garish talk to the strategic plan or what we are doing in terms of investing funds there.
Great question. It's something we've thought about, but we haven't actually put in any meaningful resources at SVCE to follow that for the reasons Monica said. I think of a few things. The Inflation Reduction Act has really provided a tremendous impetus, especially in the hydrogen side. We're still too small to make a giant difference. Potentially in California, CC Power is a place where we can look at that, and that's one of the reasons we created CC Power, is to do things that we can't do on our own. In your consent calendar, we did 4 contracts, CC Power done that. We're in the process of hiring a new general manager there. This person should be in place in March, and this will be a full-time general manager, whereas right now we have someone working at about 30% full-time. So these are the kinds of opportunities that is on this general manager's work plan for year 2. Year 1 is just operationalizing all our current agreements. So it's a very timely question. Benna Chang, legislative director, is also following where the money is flowing. So we'll keep this in mind and we'll bring it back in our strategic plan for the coming year.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see any here. Do we have any from the board online? No? So just thank you for those comments. They prompted some thoughts on my part. And first off, in terms of what are the long-term strategic things, I'm on the distribution list for a University of California Climate Action Network, and what are we going to do with the money for long-term research from Inflation Reduction Act and other things? So it's very interesting, but it's very much out there. It strikes me as being kind of beyond our nuts and bolts approach of what we're doing. The other thought has to do with the seasonality. You know, we use geothermal in two different ways. We use it here, as in there's a plant that's taking hot, say, deep hot water from deep underground, and it's producing power from it. When we went on the tour of Google's facility, they showed the one answer to your question, I thought, Director Rennie, and that was geothermal in the sense of storing heat and pulling from it underneath their own building on a seasonal basis. And I thought that sounded like it interesting, but they're Google. They have resources. They can try things out. Maybe that's our role here in California, is we can be the leaders in trying things out like that. Not seeing any other comments. Do we have any others from the public? Go ahead, Mr. Carney.
Thanks. You know, I have every confidence that the staff can weather the pressures that come from all of the different Senate bills and CPUC decisions, because I think they realized, as I hope all of you do, that there are really no alternatives to achieving a carbon-free future, whether that's done in 2045 or some other year. All of our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and those who come after them depend on us solving this very complex set of challenges. When Carbon Free Mountain View led the efforts to create this agency 6 years ago, our very simplistic idea was that we should have all renewable carbon-free energy, and we had not given any thought to the deeper complexities that Monica and Garish and others on the team have to face every single day. So, you know, I'm going to chalk this up to, I believe their hearts are in the right place. Their analytical capabilities are first rate. They are experienced, and they have a great credit rating that not every CCA can boast. And so I have every confidence that with your guidance, they will achieve as much as can be achieved as fast as possible.
Thank you for those comments. You know, since I have the floor here, you know, one of the things that strikes me is that, you know, the analogy of turning the Queen Mary, you know, it takes a long time and a lot of effort to change things. And I feel like we've got two Queen Marys here. One of them is, how do we change people's behavior to electrify the things that they do? That takes time and money and infrastructure, you know, heat pumps and cars and all that. Then we've got the Queen Mary of the supply side, and that is, how long does it take? Where are we on the curve in terms of economies of scale for solar? Because I've seen some things that say long term we have the ability to bring it down, but there's a crunch right now. So I look and I say, if we are determined to decarbonize, and in the interim those two Queen Marys don't quite line up, and we've changing behavior, and we do have to buy a little more natural gas and to get it going until we get the supply going, is that a bad thing? And I would say no, if it's a temporary sort of thing. So you're getting a little philosophy from me here today. Further philosophy, perhaps.
Yes. As I look at what the alternatives are that you were describing, there's a lead time to building those things. And I did the ribbon cutting at Rabbit Brush on behalf of SVCEA, and you know, it takes several years to get all the pieces in place. And when I heard the speeches of what was required to actually put that in place, it's an immense amount of effort and an immense amount of time. And we have to start doing things now that are going to come online 4 or 5 years from now. And if it's new technologies, then it's, you know, throw in another 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, but we have to start soon.
All right. Well, thank you for that comments. And then, yes.
We do have a virtual public comment.
Great.
Mr. Arnold De Leon.
Let's hear from you, Mr. De Leon.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. A few quick comments. One, I'm assuming the staff is aware, at least looking at things like hydrogen, at least clean hydrogen, is not going to be an energy source. It is just another form of energy storage. I'm probably stating the obvious, but I just want to sort of point that out. Two, I think I heard, and I think there's a broader mindset of adopting the idea that I forget her name, but the person who was speaking, in thinking about, in particular around renewables like solar and wind, we're going to need to basically overbuild. You know, the only practical solution for intermittent sources is you're just going to have to, you know, have more than what you need, and you can't just size to either nameplate capacity or whatever. We just have to accept that sometimes you're going to have to curtail. The beautiful thing about both solar and wind is curtailing is generally not that difficult compared to, say, a typical fossil fuel plant. And then a final comment is, even as we move towards heat pumps, for instance, in heating, they do have the magic ability in the sense we can go past unity, even if you count a natural gas powered heat pump, if you think about it that way, is potentially more efficient, likely more efficient, particularly in our climate, than a natural gas heat at the use source. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. Historically, I've had a heat pump for like 15 years now. I find it really historically has been very frustrating that the price of a heat pump is has been ridiculously much higher than it should be when it's basically an effing air conditioner with a few more parts. And I think there's an opportunity there for leadership in either communities in efforts like this, or at state or national levels, to sort of reduce that difference. I've tried to take advantage of some of the incentives. Unfortunately, right now, they tend to, all that happens is they get the installer's markup according to the incentives, so I'm not sure that they're necessarily achieving all of the results, but that's the landscape. But as it is, I think we have an opportunity to get to 100% renewable, but we just need to accept the fact that everything is not going to be used 100% of the time. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for those comments, Mr. De Leon. With that, I don't see any other comments, so I want to thank everybody for a very good discussion and also for your presentation, Ms. Padilla. And with that, let's move on to item number unnumbered, and that is board member announcements and direction on future agenda items. Do we have any comments from the board in terms of announcements or future items? I do see Director Chua. Thanks. Go ahead. You are muted right now.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to happily share with you that Congressman Ro Khanna was able to secure $24 million district. $3 million of that is we're getting for our city's carbon neutral homes incentive program. This is to incentivize family homeowners to convert their fossil fueled appliances to carbon-free ones. And this is in line with Chair's comment on Queen Mary's, two of your Queen Marys, I think, because changing people's behavior towards carbon-free electricity. Well, we're really happy and excited to launch this program fairly soon. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Great.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We're happy and excited too. Do we have any other comments? I do not see any here. Okay, with that, thank everybody for having a very nice meeting, and I will now say this meeting is adjourned.
Happy birthday.